Can your dream of becoming a Demon Lord Commander come to fruition in Dragonflight, where with Demonology, it might just look like it's going to happen? And this is what we're going to be talking about today. After so long, Demonology starts to feel like a more completed spec where devs, where Blizzard actually starts to realize what the spec is supposed to be, spec-wise, flavor, fantasy, all of that, and that's what we're going to be talking about today in this video with the Demonology Warlock in Dragonflight alpha build currently that we've been able to test in its initial inception. And if you like this type of content, you want to see more of it coming your way, make sure to check the Patreon page down below where you can support us making more of this content on a daily basis with as high of a quality as we can afford, with all these cool lights and cameras that I don't know what they do because Marcelian kind of sets that up anyway. But if you do like our content and you want to see more of it, consider becoming a patron and supporting us a little bit more. There are a couple of tiers that you can get to if you want to get some certain goodies, certain privileges, certain perks, like wallpapers, like access to Discords, which is actually open for all patrons and everybody, of course, and, you know, monthly meetings with the patrons and chat live with you guys while we talk ideas and exchange opinions and all of that stuff. Everything is included in the Patreon, so if you do want to be a part of that, check the link down below. And with that out of the way, let's actually talk Demonology. Now, this is not our first Warlock video of alphas, and I did mention a bunch of stuff about the general talent tree, so I'm not gonna go over too many of them. Just like an overall brief explanation, like the top part of the talent tree is most of the core stuff, tankiness, passives, burning rush, fell domination, that stuff, right? There's maybe one thing that will probably catch your eye, and that is spell lock, which is the kick, which is something that we've wanted as Demonologists for a while, and you can have your Felguard now and your kick, which is great. And outside of that is just really generic Warlock stuff that you can explore at your own leisure, or if you go to the Dragonflight talent calculator on Wowhead, you can actually go into each one and make your own build. However, there are a couple of nodes that you will be interested in, and one of those nodes is Demonic Inspiration, which is kind of like opposites to the middle side with Wrathful Minion. Both of these two nodes buff your pet. Whenever a soul shard is filled, whenever you generate a soul shard, your pet can get, well, from Demonic Inspiration, you can get 5% extra haste for 8 seconds. And from the Wrathful Minion, it gets 5% extra damage for 8 seconds. And obviously, they work in congruence with each other, in coordinates, in unison, like a marriage of two beautiful talents to give your pet more damage. And this is probably going to affect you more than any other Warlock spec, since your Felguard is a certified beast. Now, with that out of the way, and we're gonna skip over the middle part of the talent tree since it's mostly defensive cooldowns and utility and stuff like that, I do want to mention the bottom side of the tree, which is very throughput heavy. And but before we actually get to that, Grimoire of Synergy is probably going to be mandatory, especially for you, but pretty much for all Warlock specs, since it is the Demonic Synergy legendary from Legion, from Shadowlands, where you or your pet alternatively get buffed, which is great. It's kind of free damage if you want to consider it. So yeah, that's pretty good. Now, if we go back to the bottom two rows of the talent tree, there's a bunch of things going. From the left-hand side, you have the Pact of the Imp Mother, which is probably better for you, again, since you do focus more on pet damage. So each time your primary pet, in this case your Felguard, deals damage, their damage is increased by 1% up to 5% for the first point, and after reaching 5 stacks, this bonus resets. So obviously your Felguard will do massive amounts of damage since it's both good in single-target and AoE, so this will probably be a must. Although we'll see, because it's more competition for you here than, let's say, Destroy and Affliction. Obviously you have Soul Conduit, which is, you know, it's Soul Conduit, and towards the middle side of the tree, you do have Pact of the Annihilin, or Pact of Annihilin, or whatever, which works similarly to the right-hand side version of it, which is Pact of the Eridar, where wild imps are essentially buffed. It works kind of the same way. Both of them kind of do the same thing for Demonology, as opposed to Destroy and Affliction, where they kind of like give more single target or more AoE damage. Again, something that you might want. Depends exactly on the tuning on how much you want them. Below the Annihilin, you have Decimating Ball, which is whatever. And below the Pact of the Eridar, you have Dimensional Rift, which is again whatever. Right now, it's hard to tell how good this is because in the tooltips and on the alpha, it's still says that it generates soul shard fragments. It's damage, it's just free damage on a 3 charge basis with 45-second cooldown, but the 3 soul shard generations either isn't implemented because Demo doesn't have shards, doesn't have fragments rather, and I thought that they would just generate up into the background and my UI would only show once I have a full one, but it's so hard because using all 3 charges doesn't give you a soul shard if they are indeed fragments. So I would expect this to be alternatively tuned for Demo, considering that shards is a different economy from Destruction, where the spell has been pulled from. So I would imagine that each charge of Rift gives you 1 shard. I don't know if that's going to be over time or instantly. We'll see exactly in future builds. But I did, and I didn't skip it unintentionally. I did skip it intentionally, but I do want to talk about Summon Jailer, which is the bottom left-hand side capstone. Again, we go back to just below Pact of the Imp Mother. This is not implemented, so we couldn't really test it, but it does feel like it's something that Demonology would like because it's another demon pet, and obviously this seems to potentially do a lot of damage. We'll see exactly how much once we can put it into practice, and obviously since you have your Tyrant and other talents that will buff the damage of demons, this probably might be the mandatory capstone. If, of course, this synergizes well with all the others. We don't know yet, but we can only assume. Now, with that out of the way, let's actually talk about the Spec talents. And similarly to Destruction and similarly to all other specs as well, the top part is very generic in the sense that you will get your core spells like Dreadstalkers and Demon Bolt and all of that. And you do have a lot of your current talents put there and a lot of passives and core mechanics that will make the spec come to life. And I think that out of all of the 3 specs, I think that Demonology has the most amount of conduits here. I'm seeing the Stalkers, the Fel Commando, the Born of Blood, and so on and so forth. Now, the things that we will be talking about a little bit more interesting, because I'm not going to go into all of it because it will take just too long, but Imp Gang Boss on the middle / left-hand side of the talent tree is kind of like a new thing. It summons like your Wild Imps have a 5% chance to summon an Imp Gang Boss, which initially I thought it was the tier set version of the Empowered Imp, but it doesn't seem like it, and it has an extra function that works with Implosion, which actually doesn't work on Alpha as of this recording of the video. I hope they fix it soon, because once you do, you know, explode it, then you get another Imp in its stead, so that's kind of cool. I remember this kind of being the first concept of this being introduced in Hearthstone, so it functions thematically the same way, where if something happens to it, then it gives you more imps, which that's pretty cool. Doom is still in the fucking talent tree, and they don't want to give this up, man. They cannot make this spell interesting for the life of me. This obviously was is an all-time favorite. It's very, very thematic to Demonology. They're very thematic to Warlock, rather. But it's a very old talent, and I still haven't seen a proper implementation of it, although it had some play. It has seen some play. I don't know if it was at the beginning of Shellens or end of BFA, but I digress. It feels dog shit. Now, it does have an interesting upgrade, which I can understand where they want to take in, where they want this to be taken, but it doesn't feel like it's enough, which is Kazak's Final Curse, that gives it 3% increased damage for each demon you have active. And it's a 2-pointer, so it's 6% damage, which it still doesn't feel enough. Let's take like a random number. Let's say you would have about 30 demons out in an ideal situation. You would have about 3 dogs, right? If you do take the talent that gives you an extra dog, you have, let's say, an average of 20 imps, although hitting those 20 imps out, most likely in single target, will take a little bit of gear, right? So you'd have those 20 imps, you would have a Tyrant, you might have a Vile Fiend, you'll have your Felguard basic pet, let's say the Felguard Grimoire, which, I mean, it's weird if that's what you're going to be building, but for the purpose of the example, that's about 30 pets. So with 30 pets, if you put 1 point into it, it'll give you 330% spell damage after 20 seconds, which is laughable. And even if you put the second point in, you'd get about 660% spell damage, a little bit over that, maybe 670%, which is like a lot for one instance of damage dealing, but it's over 20 seconds, and I don't know, man. I don't know. This obviously needs to be simmed. I couldn't properly test it out because nothing lives that long right now on Alpha. But over 20 seconds, if you do have like 660% spell power, dealing its damage, that's about 30% spell power per second in terms of DPS gain, which is particularly not that much. Definitely not for a 3-point talent, let's say synergy. I don't think that's worth it whatsoever, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong because I kind of do want Doom to be played. That's an interesting spell, but in the way that it functions just doesn't match the way that encounters are designed, where you need a lot of upfront damage now. You want it now and now and now and now, and you want things to be super fast. So not only is this a slow type of mechanic, its thing happens at the end. So if the target dies, if it's an AoE, then it's... And if it's a single target boss fights, like how many of these can you get out? Is the tick good? Is it matching the encounter phase? Will it hit the boss when the boss is immune or anything like that? So that's why I'm not a big fan of the current Doom. We can keep going down and we will get Tyrant eventually, which is part of the fantasy of, the core talents. The core side of the spec is meshed together into the middle side of the talent tree. And Tyrant is just the Tyrant, the basic version of the Tyrant before all the buffs in Shadowlands. Because if you do want to get like the meaty Tyrant, you will have to take Soulbound Tyrant, which is the talent down below. Man, there's some melodious alliteration. But it's a 2-pointer, the Soulbind Tyrant, and it gives 3 and then 5 shards once you've casted the Tyrant out, which is I think the Azurite trait from BFA and how the core spell behaves right now in Shadowlands. So again, you have to spend 3 talent points to get the turn that you want. And just underneath it, you actually have the capstone, which is the demonic consumption, and Wilfrid's, which Wilfrid's will see appearance in all of the Warlock specs. Demonic consumption is obviously what you've been playing in the first season, and I believe also in the second season of Shadowlands, at least in raids. While Wilfrid's is the legendary, which you can play with both, but not anymore. So we'll see exactly how that turns out. It's obviously situational. Maybe you want more turns. Maybe you want a stronger Tyrant. So yeah, I guess it is what it is. And if you look a little bit to the right-hand side, you have Forces of War Nightmare, which is unlocked by the Tyrant, which you'll probably want anyway. And that's the 10% chance to cast a second Hand of Gul'dan once your target has been hit by Hand of Gul'dan, which is good. It's more imps. Now, the right-hand side is an interesting side of the talent tree that we haven't kind of seen, really, where you just have a lot of Felguard buffs, which is cool because it's not something that I feel Demonology has done either at all or for a long time, because I cannot remember the last time where your main pet was really the source of your damage, which kind of feels a little bit beast mastery. First of all, you have Fel Sunder that makes Fel Storm debuff the targets to take more damage from you, which is really good. There's a lot of like single target and AoE mixes of this, so it's not single target oriented, it's not AoE, it's kind of like both. Closer towards the capstone, where on the same level of the Tyrant, you have Antoran Armament, which increases the Felguard damage, and the Soul Strike that you can pick further up deals part of its damage into AoE as well, which is good. And also a little bit weird because Soul Strike is higher up in the talent tree as a choice node between it and Vile Fiend. And I don't know if this affects Vile Fiend in any way, because I did play with Vile Fiend and I couldn't tell if it affected Vile Fiend in any way. So let's see. Otherwise, if you do pick Antoran Armaments, you'll probably want to take Soul Strike just to get the full value out of the talent. Further down below to the actual capstone, you have Stolen Power, which kind of doesn't really have much to do with Felguard, but it does bring an interesting dynamic to the playstyle, where you'd probably just have single target, which I guess this is probably what they wanted to do with this side of the talent tree, considering that it doesn't have a clear single target or AoE identity. This would be the single target version, if, of course, tuned properly. And on the right-hand side, you start with Command Aura, which makes your Felguard buff your other demons, which is great, kind of is like a mini Tyrant. And obviously, the more demons you have, the better that is. And also that factors into what kind of playstyle you're playing, raids or dungeons. And the second capstone is Hold This For Me, which is not yet implemented on Alpha, 45-second cooldown, where your Felguard throws his axe, dealing very, very mediocre Shadow Flame damage. It says every 0 seconds on the tooltip, but I'm not sure. Since it's not implemented, we cannot test it, so I don't know exactly how much damage that is. But once that's done, your Felguard for a little while, like we don't know for how long, once again, unless this is a toggle ability, will use his fist to slap enemies in AoE. Now, since we don't know how long this lasts for, it does seem like it's a toggle ability, so it could be like a stance switch for your Felguard, which actually is an interesting dynamic. So you could swap your Felguard from AoE to single target. Because if it is a stance, I would imagine that the punch things in AoE would probably have lower single target damage but more AoE, while, you know, Legion strikes and those single target abilities from your Felguard will hit really hard on one target. But that is the right-hand side of the tree. The left-hand side is the kind of demonic core, wild imps, dog choices, although there's a lot of like resource, let's say efficient playing playstyle. And it goes, obviously you have the Grim Inquisitor legendary, which is there, which is great because it's a fun legendary. I have a lot of fun playing with it on live. Bale Spider is also there, which is single target. So the interesting part of it is that the Grim Inquisitor goes down to Bale Spider and the Imgang boss that I mentioned before, where Bale Spider is clearly single target, while Imgang boss is clearly AoE because it gets its function from Implode. So it depends on where you want to build. You're not really forced to take a single target single target talent if you want to play AoE or vice versa to get to Nether Portal. And Nether Portal, although numbers aside, might actually come into the playstyle, which is something that I've been waiting for since it was added in, if I'm not mistaken, the BFA pre-patch, because I don't remember it being in Legion, but I remember the first time I saw it, I wanted to play with this for so long. It was always very, very underwhelming. Now it's a 2.5 minute cooldown on Dragonflight Alpha. It costs 1 soul shard, and for 15 seconds it summons a demon, I think, every time you spend a soul shard. I don't think it's 1 demon per shard. I think it's just 1 demon per transaction of shards, let's say, which obviously on its own is just dog shit. It never did anything interesting. It's not gonna do anything interesting. However, you do have a couple of upgrades for it on the left-hand side. First of all, you have Ner'zhul's Volition, which increases duration by, I think, 5 seconds. I cannot really tell. And obviously you can put 2 points into it, so it's basically 10. The tooltip is not particularly clear, but what's more interesting is the capstone, which is Gul'dan's Ambition, where you fucking summon a Pit Lord. How long have we been asking for a Pit Lord as a pet? Oh, yes. Now, the way this works is if you read the tooltip, when Nether Portal ends, you summon a Pit Lord that gains power based on how many soul shards were spent, up to 10 total soul shards, while Nether Portal was active, and the demon lasts for 10 seconds. Now, I've tested this on Alpha because it does work, and thank God. It seems that the power that's currently quantified as a buff to the Pit Lord, it's basically haste. Now, I don't know how that translates because I didn't have access to its toolkit to see exactly what it did. Because in logs, the only way that I could quantify its power, it just shows as Gul'dan's Ambition. It doesn't show like Pit Lord melee damage or Pit Lord special attack or whatever. It just deals, that's how the logs see it, as that sort of damage. And obviously 10% haste could be good. Obviously it's good. It probably attacks quicker. I don't know if it has time to cast more abilities. If it does have any special abilities, I could only see it in terms of its animation to deal melee damage. It's currently very undertuned. I wasn't impressed with it as a capstone at all, but thematically, this is fucking amazing. And if this can be tuned, if this can be brought to a respectable level, to a competitive level, that would be fucking amazing, because Jesus, man, who doesn't want to see a fucking high resolution Pit Lord right next to them slapping things with a big glaive? That was fucking amazing. And obviously there is another capstone there, the last capstone, the Expendables, which is actually kind of interesting. When your wild imps expire or die, your other demons are inspired and gain 1% additional damage, second up to 10 times. It's interesting in the sense that obviously it would probably work better in AoE. It's 10% extra damage to the demons, which, I mean, it might not sound like a lot, but if you are playing heavy AoE, and definitely if you are playing Nether Portal, that could work. Timing this with Nether Portal, timing this with implosions to get like the most value, sacrificing the least amount of imps, probably it's above the remaining ones to hit harder. It depends. It can offer some flexibility to the playstyle that can be interesting if it's worth it. I am a little bit skeptical that the 10% damage for a capstone might not be worth it if you look at Wilfred's or Consumption on the middle side of the tree, and Stolen Power, let's say. I guess only the middle side can have some relatability, since we have played it with before. The other ones we cannot really figure out how much they do, but at least it's interesting. It's variety. You can build your Demolock to be a Supreme Lord Commander of the Demons. Oh yes, I've been waiting for this for so long, and this has been some of the most exciting moments I have had so far on Alpha, and I hope this gives you some more, you know, incentive to play it as the main in Dragonflight, because God knows we need more Demonology Warlocks out there. So did you like the video? Do you think you'll main Demo? Would you like to see some other talents or some of them swapped around? Because right now it's looking pretty fun. I did not expect it this way, so I'm highly psyched. And if you like the video and you want to see more, once again, consider hitting the Patreon page down below, see what it's about. Maybe you'll find something that you like, maybe you don't. Well, what is there to lose? And you will be supporting us, and we will be very, very grateful for it, because you know, it's nice, and we are kind of making a living out of this, so it helps a lot, you know, in making daily videos for you guys. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you to your patrons for supporting our content, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classical retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.